Good evening, and I'd like to call to order the June 7th meeting of the Los Gatos Town Council. This is an excellent opportunity for you to turn off your phones or put them on vibrate. And if we could have a roll call, please.
Councilmember Mike Wasserman.
Here.
Councilmember Steve Rice.
Here.
Councilmember Barbara Spector.
Here.
Vice Mayor Joe Pruszynski.
Here.
Mayor and Chair Diane McKnight.
Here. At every council meeting, we have a special feature called the Future Leaders Program, in which we identify a young person in our community who is already showing signs of great leadership. We have many to choose from. Many of them are here tonight. You're going to hear a little bit more about them as the meeting goes on. But as our special guest this evening to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, we have Sam Ball, who is a 7th grader at Hillbrook School. And Sam, why don't you come up here and stand here and get embarrassed while I tell everyone about you. We get background from the teachers who nominate these folks. And Sam is an exceptional student, they tell us. He is kind, respectful, a good friend to his peers, and focused. Quotes from his teachers, just the kind of thing you want to see on a report card. He possesses a sharp and insightful mind. Sam brings a passion to class every day. His writing is creative and thorough, showing a mastery of the material. He volunteered at the Live Oak Adult Daycare and in Vision. He performs in children's music theater in San Jose. He's very musical, playing the guitar, composing, writing music, writing, dancing, singing, plays basketball, and most very specially, today is his 14th birthday. So please stand and join Sam in the Pledge of Allegiance. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And a standing ovation, please, for Sam and his birthday. Next, I would like to invite forward our Police Chief, Scott Seaman, who, along with some members of the Youth Commission, are going to make a very special presentation. And I see her, Diane Anderson, from the Los Gatos Chamber of Commerce. I didn't see you slip in. I was afraid you hadn't made it. Scott, it's all yours.
May I ask that the members of the current Youth Commission come up and join me with Nikki Robinson as the key representative, but all other currently sitting Youth Commissioners come up. And Jeremy Hegberg from J.J. Magoo's Pizza, would you come up as well? Are you the one that said that's so cool? Oh, because this is really cool. I have a favorite line, and that is, I have the most wonderful news. The news tonight is that just 2 months ago, the Youth Commission, in concert with the Business Chamber of Commerce, created a brand new program for the town, which recognizes the relationship between youth shoppers and business interests. And it comes out of a long-standing sense that this is a great place for anyone to live and to raise a family, but that we could do more to make the business environment more closely connected to youth. Members of the Youth Commission who are standing behind me started their work by surveying youth to find out where kids were spending their money, and they realized that a lot of money was sneaking out of town. That was the germination of an idea to recognize businesses who work very, very hard in many, many ways to create a very receptive, respectful, and appropriate business environment for teens and youth in our community. And the Youth Commission found and modeled a program after an Alaska program, coincidentally titled Youth Friendly Business Program, and they launched it this last March 31st. And many people in the community, perhaps some of the people here, have actually nominated businesses in Los Gatos to be considered by the Youth Commission in that partnership with the Chamber of Commerce to be selected as a youth-friendly business. And to date, over 50 businesses have been recognized and have been nominated and recognized. It was the desire of the Youth Commission to give one special recognition each year timed with the end of the term of the Youth Commission. And this year they considered 4 businesses out of the group of over 50 and selected J.J. Magoo's Pizza on Los Gatos Boulevard. And so here tonight is Jeremy Hegberg representing Jim Johnson from J.J. Magoo's. Jim got waylaid down in Pismo Beach, or the team did really well, or something happened, but he wasn't able to make it. He really wanted to be here tonight. I want to give special attention to Nikki Robinson, Vice Chair of the Youth Commission, and ask Nikki, with Diane Anderson from the Chamber of Commerce, incoming President of the Chamber, to present this award to J.J. Magoo's through Jeremy.
Congratulations. Thank you.
And Jeremy, I don't know if Jim warned you, but we were going to have Jim say a couple of words. Did he ask you to say anything?
No, not really.
Okay. And so would you like to? Are you the kind of guy that would like these impromptu opportunities?
No, I'm okay.
All right. I do want to take just a moment to ask Nikki to say a couple of words about what it means to the Youth Commission to be able to do this, and then Diane has a few words to say on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce.
All right, well, we're very excited to have finally launched this program. We actually started contemplating it about 4 years ago, and then we didn't really start working on it a whole lot until this last year, but we've gotten a lot of support from all the members of the Youth Commission, from the Chamber of Commerce, and from the Police Department, and also from the business managers as well. And we're very excited to launch this program. We think it's going to improve the community as a whole, and we hope to see one day every business in Los Gatos with a youth-friendly business sticker on their window.
And I just want to say, it's obvious that the youth of Los Gatos is very important to this community. To the Chamber of Commerce, the business community is very important, and the growth and the bringing those two things together is a wonderful, perfect marriage. Great thing to see here. So I want to congratulate the program, the youth commissioners, and J.J. Magoo's for winning the award. Thank you.
Thank you all. And I think the youth commissioners can be reseated for right now. We may have some of you come back up in a minute. Scott, you stay here, I understand. That's what I've been told. And I want to make sure that everyone paid attention to one fact there in that whole thing, and that there were 50 businesses nominated. So it's great that Magoo's won, but there are 49 others that have met the qualifications for nomination for this, and it's a great start to a great program. We have some youth commissioners this evening who are leaving us, and we wanted to recognize them with some appreciation. And Scott, I understand that you're going to introduce them.
Yes.
Okay. And we're not sure who all is here, so maybe
I can do that.
let's just call the names and see who we've got here. I believe it's finals week at high school, so.
And Paul Glenn. So our first youth commissioner who is coming off the commission is Paul Glenn. Is there somebody from the family taking a picture? Thank you so much. And so, Paul, am I right that you're moving away from the area?
Yeah, Scotland.
Oh my gosh, Paul's going to Scotland, and he's going to infuse them with great ideas from Los Gatos.
Thank you so much.
And Alyssa Miller. We'll let the television on. And Alyssa was one of the key contributors to our recognition of the town of Los Gatos for the Project Cornerstone Award. She was featured in the video, gave very great testimony from her work working on Project Cornerstone projects and the Youth-Friendly Business Program. So Alyssa, congratulations and thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
And is Robert Van Unen here? Okay. Robert was our chair and did a fantastic job. He's been on the commission 2 years. It's just so much fun to see these kids blossom, and Robert was a great example of that. Andrew Yang. So Andrew has just announced that he's going to Boston College in the fall. Congratulations, Andrew. Thank you very much. And is Sheridan Jones in? Okay, well, our congratulations go to Robert Van Unen and Sheridan Jones, and we have other youth commissioners in the audience who will be announced in a different moment who are coming into the youth commission. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And as the chief said, we also have with us some of the young people who are just now going to be coming onto the Youth Commission as soon as council formally enacts their appointment to that in just a few minutes. But if they are here and would like to stand just as a group, we would like to give them applause. Oh, there they are. Wow. Okay. And I think they're going to get some more formal recognition individually as they start the new school year. But we just wanted to make sure that they had an opportunity to come tonight and to know how much we appreciate them carving out some time for public service along with their schoolwork, athletics, clubs, and other activities that they do on their way to college and other activities. So I think this concludes the ceremonial part of the agenda. So this is an opportunity right now. If you are going to want to speak on any items on tonight's agenda, please fill out a card and turn it in right over here. And in the meantime, Mr. Attorney, if you would very slowly like to give the closed session report, I'll return to my seat.
Thank you, Mayor McNutt. The closed session report this evening is that there is no closed session report because we did not have a closed session scheduled. And that should conclude the closed session report. Getting better. Getting better, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Capurso. Okay, council matters. Does council have anything they would like to announce for the good of the public? Seeing none, manager matters.
Mayor, members of the council, we have a few items to report. First, we sold our redevelopment agency's certificates of participation last week, achieving a very, very favorable interest rate due to the credit crisis in Europe, actually. And the bonds were sold at about a 3.5, 3.6% interest rate instead of the 4.25 to 4.5 we were expecting. For those members of the public who are interested in buying our library bonds, they are available retail from Schwab as the broker for the retail sales. In terms of what's happening this week, tomorrow is Election Day, and residents can turn in their absentee ballots until 5 p.m. And that's Santa Clara County residents can turn in their absentee ballots at the clerk's office upstairs until 5 p.m. Friday is the deadline for the public to submit applications for our boards and commissions vacancies. We have a number of vacancies on about a half dozen commissions, and we're seeking more applicants to apply by Friday. All the application materials are available on our website. This week wraps up with Saturday, the restoration of our Second Saturday program that was so successful last year, that our economic vitality staff is working with the Chamber of Commerce and the local business community to highlight go local opportunities here in Los Gatos to keep our retailers and employees and employers successful here in town. That concludes staff report, and I would now like to turn over to the new program we've started this year, which Heidi Long will be presenting. She's our youth librarian, and she will be presenting the Did You Know for tonight. Heidi?
All right. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Yeah, okay. Did you know that the Los Gatos Library offers a summer reading program for all ages? Everyone...
It's on.
Everyone from newborn babies to adults is encouraged to sign up and make a splash with books and reading. Participation is free, and everyone can set his or her own reading goal. It's easy to track one's progress online or on a paper log. Everyone can be successful. Throughout the summer reading program, special events of all types draw people to the library to help grow a community of readers. With everything from book clubs and science nights to music, animals, and magic, there's something for every age and interest. Volunteer trainings for teens, workshops for parents, caregivers, and even more offer great depth to these offerings. All of these special events are funded by the Friends of the Library and offered free of charge to the public. When the school doors shut, we at the library open our doors even wider. Stop by before August 12th, because that's when the program ends. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah. And Mr. Larson, does that conclude manager matters?
That concludes staff report.
Okay. Next up on the agenda, we have the consent items, and these are items that will be approved with one motion unless anyone wants to pull a consent item off of the agenda. Council, does anyone want to pull anything off? Seeing none. Is there anyone in the public who would like to pull an item off of consent? Seeing none, I'll look for a motion.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Next, we have on the agenda verbal communications, and this is an opportunity for anyone in the public to speak on any matter not on tonight's agenda. I have a few cards, which I'll begin calling. You have up to 3 minutes. If anyone else wishes to speak, now would be the time to fill out the card and turn it in. First up, we have Suzanne Cochran.
Hello, my name is Suzanne Cochran, and I live at 60 Rogers Road in Los Gatos, and have lived in the neighborhood for 35 years, and have lived in my residence for 20 years. We're concerned with the change of Pageant Way and Villa Avenue, and we're here communicating those issues. Number one issue with that change is safety. And I do not support the reduction of hillside access to a large hillside community. The plan was turned down in early 1990 when the request to have Villa Avenue made a one-way street as part of the Soda Works building. It was turned down due to a safety issue and lack of width of Villa Avenue. There's a large number of residents and visitors that use this hillside. This includes Jones Road, visitors and residents of the convent, the novitiate, and the winery. College is already used as a loading zone for businesses for the Soda Works building and other East Main businesses. Multiple times a day, College is a one-way access to large truck deliveries. Pageant Way is used as a loading zone for our car dealer and completely blocked as a one-way street. So by making Pageant a one-way street and Villa Avenue, having College be the only downhill egress for that whole community is not acceptable, even in a temporary basis. Temporary, in my world, is 60 to 90 days maybe, not 2.5 to 3 years. I do support the library and want the town council to look at alternative opportunities for parking, because I know that's the main issue. Some recommendations for alternate parkings are the church is empty most of the time. The high school can be used weekends and during the summer. Change the parking for the high school on Main Street to be not for just high school parking. Use the parking behind the Civic Center where police used to have parking and the current community service officers use. They can find off-street parking for the public and let the public use that area. There's a few spots on Cleland on the right-hand side going up. People park there on the weekends. You can probably gain 7 or 8 parking spots up there on the right-hand side. So I think you need to look a little closer at the impact of the safety of the hillside before you make two egress from the whole College, Reservoir, Kimball community from 2 to 1. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Clark Cochran.
Good evening. Yes, I'm the husband. But let me ask, is the Villa and Pageant Way change known to everyone? Okay, cool. Well, I'm against the change, and I too have lived just up the hill here for 20 years, and I see the amount of traffic that's there. And I think reducing to one lane, one street, is going to be an imposition on a lot of residents. I've got 6 issues. The first one is process. And frankly, I wasn't pleased by the way this was handled. The change was made under the umbrella of temporary. Everything says temporary. We don't have to go through normal processes because it's temporary. I'd like to know from the town what the definition of temporary is. My assumption, and the assumption of the people I talked to in the neighborhood, was 60 to 90 days. No one had an issue with 60 to 90 days. 2 to 3 years doesn't seem to be temporary, and they did have issues with that. If there's no definition by the town bylaws of temporary, is 50 years temporary? It's not permanent. It's permanent in my lifetime, but it's not permanent. So I'd like to know that there's a definition for that so that we can understand when the term is temporary, what's meant. Most of the residents that are affected by this that I talked to, and I did walk the hillside last night, they were not notified. They did see the signs. That was good. They thought temporary meant 60 to 90 days, and they certainly didn't think that changing to one way meant one lane. So a lack of understanding in the knowledge transfer to the affected residents. Communication. I don't have a clear answer on what this parking is needed for. I have talked to people and I have heard construction workers, I've heard library patrons, I've heard shopping. Have we looked at other options? As my wife said, the First Church of Christ Science has a huge parking lot. Have they been contacted? We haven't heard. Will delivery trucks still be parked along College? Effectively making that a one-way street also. And finally, and the real crux of the issue here is safety. I understand the fire department is yet to approve this, but did anyone investigate the number of residences that are affected by this? Does anybody have an idea of the number of houses and roughly the number of citizens that are affected? I haven't heard. I don't believe so. But we really need to see fire approval, not just safety, not just police, but fire approval for this, because what we're talking about is 215 residences. I drove it. There's over 800 people.
That is our new timer, and with that startling little sound. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, we have Kim Worsencroft.
Hi, my name's Kim Worsencroft. I live at 81 Reservoir Road, and I've lived there about almost 30 years now. I, too, am talking about the Pageant Way. I did get a notice, and I wrote up my points in an email and sent them to Bruce Smith. I believe there's a copy submitted tonight. My big issue is always safety. There are a lot of people that live on that hill. It's kind of a well-kept secret up there because it's windy and you can't really see where the houses are, but there's a lot of us up there, not to mention the convent, the winery. Sometimes there's a lot of people at the winery. There's a lot of guys that hike and bike off of Jones Road, so there's all that kind of traffic. Kids walk to school up and down Reservoir and other hills. So it's a lot of people, and right now we have 2 egresses, and it works out pretty well. It's not perfect, but it works out pretty well. But to narrow it down to 1 egress seems very dangerous just to gain what I was told approximately 10 parking spaces. So Pageant Way and Villa would be narrowed because parking would be allowed on both sides of the street and the flow would be one way. The flow would actually be down that little tiny section of College. So imagine all this traffic now, library patrons, which all of them don't go that way, a lot of them turn the other way now, would all be forced and funneled through there, not to mention the complex intersection where Cleveland, Reservoir, and Villa come together. It's crazy getting out of there. I've done it for 30 years. So number one issue is safety. Some of the bicyclists go straight through down, which would be the wrong way on the one-way. I don't know if they'd be able to change their habits. I see accidents happening there. A lot of the College traffic actually goes straight too. So the thing seems to be if you're going to go down and you're going to turn right on Main Street, you go down Villa to Pageant. If you're going to turn left, you go down College and you use the stop sign. So that's what it is. So safety, 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 that's my concern. Am I done?
No, that's orange. That's your warning sign. You still have 2 seconds, which I probably just used up.
Oh, dear. Anyway, I'm very concerned about safety, safety, safety. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Dennis McAvoy?
Dennis McAvoy, 81 Reservoir Road, also for 30 years. I'm not going to reiterate any of the points that are already made, but I would like to make a couple of additional points on this. First of all, the signage says Pageant Way. And in fact, the notice that was sent out to the neighbors labeled both streets, Pageant Way and Villa, as Pageant Way. But it's 2 streets that are affected, and Villa is actually signed at both ends as Villa Avenue. And what's being proposed is to make both of those parking on both sides of the street, which would narrow the access. And the picture that's in my mind is of the Oakland Hills fire, and those people trying to get out through those narrow streets and fire engines trying to get up those narrow streets. And I could see the same picture if we had a fire on that hill where you have parking on both sides of the street and fire engines are trying to get up and residents are trying to get down. So I think it's extremely dangerous to narrow those streets to one lane. I'm also concerned about the process. There were no traffic counts done before the survey was sent out. After we sent our emails to Mr. Larson and Mr. Smith, there was one day that a person counted cars. We got that report. However, that did not include any of the patrons that currently go to the library and then go back down Pageant Way. I mean, nobody going to the library is going to go out and go around Villa, Pageant, and then College. But that's what's going to be required with this change. So the traffic counts don't include that. And we were promised a report from the fire chief. The last email I got from Mr. Larson said that we would get it on Friday or Monday, and we still haven't gotten anything from the fire chief saying that this is okay. So I'd like to ask that at least you don't do this June the 14th and have this be looked at as something that is a semi-permanent change, because it's going to be there for 2 years, and it should go through the process that it would have to go through if it was going to be a permanent change, so that everything gets looked at. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Art Bonner?
I was involved in this thing when it happened originally. At the time, the town was scoping out places for parking spaces and buildings. They could build parking spaces. At that time, it came up to turn Villa into a one-way street, a dual street parking. It was rejected after discussing. Sister Nikki got up and spoke against it. I since spoke to Catherine, Sister Catherine, and they're still objecting to it, but they couldn't apologize for not being here tonight. And what I really want to ask is the question: if it was not safe in the 1980s, what makes it safe today? And what I heard from my correspondence to the town is that it's okay because cars are only 4 feet wide now. You take 4 feet, and it gives you 20 feet of width. There won't be 4 feet wide cars there. There'll be a couple of Cadillac Escalades, and the other question is, When I corresponded with Mr. Bruce Smith, he said it's okay by the fire department. I spoke to the fire chief. He has not even been discussed with him. He hadn't heard it yet. The only conversation he had on Villa Avenue was about the avenue, the part of Villa Avenue goes behind the fire department, about access there in case of an emergency. So, in essence, is that I'm backing up Dennis. I think we should just put a hold on this. Okay, we haven't done our homework. I mean, the chap that wrote this thing, sent the thing out, didn't even know what street he was talking about. He called it Pageant Way. That's not planning in my book. It looks kind of sloppy. And I have no objection to the library. I have no objection to Pageant Way. I have an objection to Villa. As it currently stands. Am I getting kicked off here too?
That's your warning sign. Until it turns red, you can keep talking.
Somebody comes out with a big fish hook. Anyway, reiterating myself, I think you need to put this on a hold for another month or two and take a look at the situation from a safety point of view. Once again, if you eliminate that street, you'll only have one way off the hill. And I live there, and I've lived there for too many years. I hate to say, I'll give my age away, but it's going on 40. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. I have no other cards. Is there anyone else in the public who'd like to speak under verbal communication? Seeing none, you do? Well, come on up and speak, and then if you could fill out a card afterward, I would appreciate it. So if you could identify yourself, that would be helpful.
Maria Young. I live on College Avenue. I've
just bring it down just a
lived
tad.
there all my life, pretty much. The other thing that I want to mention is in the summertime, we usually have paramedics or fire department come up either both days on the weekend or at least once a week for people on the trail. So you want to think about that also in the kind of in the scheme of things. And the other thing is, has the town ever thought about doing metrics on how many people use College Avenue for the trail? Because it is just become overwhelming trying to drive up and down the street when you have people walking in the middle of the street with strollers. You have people on bicycles who go straight through stop signs. You have people at the bottom of College Avenue who don't know what a three-way stop is. These are all the things that we have to deal with. So that's it. Thanks.
Thank you. And if you could fill out a card before you leave, please. Is there anyone else in the public who would like to speak under verbal communication? Seeing none, I will ask Mr. Larson if he has any response, and then I'll ask council if they have anything they want to say.
Mayor, members of the council, and members of the public, I also have available Director of Parks and Public Works Todd Capurso, Project Manager Bruce Smith, and Police Chief Scott Seaman, who can provide elaboration to any additional information that I don't give you. I would just like to address some of the comments I heard repeatedly. First, in terms of the process, there was signage put up on both Pageant as well as College Avenue notifying the public. We did try to send out notice cards through our standard land use planning system that we do to all impacted properties, as well as we individually notified the immediately adjacent parcels to those two streets of the prospective changes. Second, in terms of the timing, excuse me, this is a change linked to the construction of the new library. As the council will discuss later this evening, that is a 1.5-year project. I've heard times up to 3 years. We have never proposed a 3-year temporary change. This is strictly limited to the construction of the new library. I think our assumption would be when the new library opens, if not earlier, we would be able to reconfigure the streets to their current status. That project is currently projected to open in early 2012. So that's a 1.5-year timeline is what we're looking at. In terms of the fire department, we did have early discussions at the staff-to-staff level, not involving the chief, where we got a green light on the proposed change from a public safety point of view. I then called the deputy chief, given that the chief is out of the office today. He had his staff follow up with Mr. Smith, and the fire department is supportive of this change, but they want to look at the parking spots to make sure that the parking spots at the intersection of Villa and Pageant aren't too tight to prevent a fire truck from turning quickly as need be in response to an incident. So it's the final configuration of the parking spots on the corner is the only remaining question with the fire department. And as we do with all construction changes, we follow their lead and guidance to ensure public safety. We also have our own traffic engineer has felt that the traffic counts are de minimis and not going to be of significant impact on the College Main intersection. The library patrons was a good point that one of the residents brought out. We tend to count traffic at peak hour. Morning peak hours, the library is not open. There's not any library patrons that are adding to the morning peak hour. On some days, there could be an evening impact. In terms of the police department, one change that has occurred is police operations building has now opened up, so we've lost the constant cycling of police patrol vehicles out of the Civic Center, and those have now moved up to the police operations building. The good news is, remaining at police headquarters is not only our command staff, but also our traffic staff. So if and when there were, and heaven forbid there ever would be during this year-and-a-half period, any emergency incident which requires road closure, we have the staff right on site to do it. And that would likely be required even with the current configuration, given the current array of vehicles that use the streets going both ways. There would have to be traffic enforcement and redirection. So I just wanted to summarize that we do believe at the staff level this is the safest approach to deal with the traffic flows and parking demands associated with the construction of the new library. One other point I forgot to mention, a couple of good suggestions came up on alternative parking locations. We're exploring all of those. We are in our third trial with the Church of Christ Science for parking of employees out at that site, and we just got an email at the end of last week that we can expand that through the construction of the new library. We have done alternative parking elsewhere in the Olive Zone to try to maximize customer parking at the Civic Center during the construction of the library, recognizing that the Villa to Fiesta flow-through will be gone during at least the first year of the construction of the new library. So we're trying to move traffic and parking volumes from that side to elsewhere in the Olive Zone. So that concludes staff report. Bruce and Todd and Scott are available for any other questions.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Brzezinski.
Madam Mayor, thank you. Although this all may be benign, given the fact that it's not agendized for tonight, it's only part of verbal communications. We cannot actually extend our dialogue about it. And I think there are some interesting points raised. My question to you, both Todd and Greg, is what's the time impacts if this is delayed, let's say, into August, and the other sites for parking, which we all know are being explored. Whether if those sites are explored, would this be at the top of the list of beneficial sites, or could this be a opportunity that we move into as we notice greater needs for parking? And I'm saying that fully aware that this isn't agendized, and so we're really not supposed to discuss this thing.
Madam Mayor, given it isn't an agendized action item, it might be better for me to hear other comments from council and then to respond generally,
all right,
rather than...
I know Mrs. Spector is eager to say something. So Mrs.
I don't know
Spector?
about eager, but thank you, Madam Mayor. I think that the people who spoke have made some very good points. And what I was going to ask is staff to address them, even though it wasn't agendized. I'm thinking that, I agree with the Vice Mayor, I'm thinking that the issues raised are sufficiently significant that I would like to evaluate the benefit we intend to receive from this configuration with the downside. And maybe we do need to see this agendized sometime in the future.
Mr. Rice.
I'm going to agree with Councilwoman Spector and Vice Mayor Brzezinski. I'd like to see this agendized, fully realizing that the date earliest that we could agendize it would be after this is intended to go into force, but hopefully staff has heard the concerns and we can see what we can do about that.
And Mr. Wasserman?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I don't want to violate any procedures that we have because it's not on the agenda and you all understand that, but I think one thing that I've heard, and I think it's important that staff hears as well, and I'm sure they did, is improving our communications to those involved. Each of these people that have spoken tonight has submitted a card, so I would assume on that you have your addresses and perhaps email addresses, so if nothing else, I suggest we add those cards of the people that came here tonight just to add to our database as far as notification. And number two, I think parking was brought up a lot. Council was aware of the efforts that you've been making with the church and the great progress that's been taking place with the church and the government working together to meet these community needs. And we sit here very stoically listening to your suggesting that, knowing that we're doing that. And that's a frustrating part of government and communication. I can't say anymore and we can't discuss it, but I just wanted to toss that out there.
Mr. Larson?
Mayor, what is allowed at this point under the Brown Act is 2 council members to request consideration of this item on a future agenda. I've heard 2 members express that interest. It will be scheduled for a future council meeting. Which council meeting becomes the question. We could put it on the June 21st agenda. That is a fairly light agenda. We won't have extensive additional information beyond what we've already presented to you. We will have documentation from the fire department. That's the only item we haven't received at this point in time. And that would allow the changes to be implemented without any further contractual changes or any potential impact on the library project. So.
And unless council can tell me right now of some information that they think they would like as part of the consideration of this that would be extensive and require more than 2 weeks, that would be my inclination also, because in August we're doing general plan, and that's a pretty hefty agenda item. It's going to take a few hours of council meeting, and this would go on after it, which means you would be on around 11 or 12. So June 21st in 2 weeks, I think, would be the best timing, unless there's something, Mr. Wasserman, that you would want to see in terms of background that would require more time than that.
I don't know if it would require more time or not, Madam Mayor, but if we do the June 21st, if we have a meeting, which I'm in favor of having, I think we need from staff perhaps some alternatives for council to consider. Option A, option B, that kind of thing. And I don't know if that's enough time for them to come up with options to what we're hearing objections to.
And Vice Mayor?
Yes, my sense is that that would be rushing it. And I'd rather hear a more extensive presentation, no specific items that I can identify that require an extreme amount of staff time, but it just seems like it's pushing it. And again, I'm wondering, how much of an emergency are we attempting to resolve by including this in the June meeting? And so my thought would be to allow that time. It's not that we don't have items on the June 21 agenda. So I would think that my preference would be, as Councilman Wasserman's, that if indeed something can be pulled together between now and then, that would be sufficient. That's acceptable. But more appropriately, we do have some meetings in August, and I think that we could hold that again until we determine how much of an emergency this is that we have to put these parking spaces in place at this time.
Okay, so Mr. Larson, I think probably you and I will discuss this and figure out a game plan here.
Got it.
So it will be on an agenda.
It will either be on June 21st or one of the August meetings.
And there may be a special meeting in August, so that gives us a third opportunity, and so we'll figure it out, and we'll let you know. All right? Thank you. Okay, moving on in the agenda, we have agenda item number 16. This is to award the construction contract for the new Los Gatos Library. We'll begin with a staff report by Todd Capurso.
Okay, thank you, Mayor, members of the council. As you know, this project has a very long history, but I'll focus on the events that have transpired over about the last year. So we've received extensive community input regarding the design of the library. In our effort to put together a final design, which resulted in a set of plans and specifications, we did a pre-qualification process for prospective contractors back in December of '09. And finally, in March of this year, the council did approve the final set of plans and specifications. Staff then held a pre-construction meeting to pre-qualify contractors on April 22nd, and on May 14th, when the bids were due, we received 10 bids on the project, which is pretty successful. The low bidder on the job is Bogard Construction. They submitted a bid for base bid and all 5 ad alternatives for $11,642,676, which is approximately $2.8 million below the engineer's estimate. So once again, good news on the bid front for the town of Los Gatos. And at this time, I would like to specifically thank our town engineer, Assistant Director of Parks and Public Works, Kevin Rohani, and Capital Projects Manager, Bruce Smith, for all their work in leading the bid process. And I would also like to introduce Jared Bogard of Bogard Construction here to represent his company. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Does council have any questions of staff? Mr. Rice?
Quick question. On the projects that have come before us previously, including the police operations building, we had about a 10% recommendation for change orders. And in this case, we're looking at more like 18%. Just, can you clarify as to why that number came in? Yes. On the police building, I think we were just a little bit higher than 10%. We're probably about 12. That's not a science in putting together your contingency amount. We basically look at the percentages. In the industry, you'll see percentages typically around 15%. In this case, I think we're around 17, maybe 18%. So we basically round it up, and it allows us additional flexibility over the construction period. Of course, that's a fairly significant amount of money, which we would not expand without keeping council fully updated on our expenses. So what this really does is that it allows the project, once awarded, to move quicker if we get into a situation where we need to approve change orders. Again, the expectation is not that we're going to have to expend a very large portion of that money, but it's basically coverage over the term of the project. And as we go into the project over the council recess, there's a likelihood that if we were to encounter anything on the front end of the project, because our construction period is scheduled to begin the first week in July, that if we needed any significant change orders, we'd either have to call the council back together over the month of July or wait. So this essentially puts us in a better position to move forward with the project. And as I said earlier, we would keep council fully up to date on any change orders.
If I could just add, Madam Mayor.
Certainly.
I believe it was 12% on the police operations building, as Mr. Capurso mentioned. This is a generous contingency. Fortunately, the very aggressive bidding environment created the savings in the project budget that we would not recommend alternative use of those funds in the near term anyway. So having them available in the contingency as we kind of deal with the site issues, the utility relocation, and others, just created more flexibility to ensure we deliver the library project on time, on budget. As we learned with the police operations building and other projects, having the contingency doesn't mean you spend it. It is simply a contingency, and part of our project staff role, as well as the construction management firm, Swinnerton, is to make sure that any use of contingency is justified and warranted. It starts off zeros available until it's proven it's needed.
Mr. Rice, you did?
I'm fine with that. Thank you.
Mr. Wasserman?
Thank you. And I want to echo what Mr. Rice said, and I appreciate what you both have said regarding bringing it on time and on budget. It's just I look at the on budget as being 11.6. That's what I think about as on budget. And if something else were to come up that needs to be done or should be done, I understand contingencies, having been in construction and all myself. And that's the only thing in this staff report that stuck out to me too, was the percentage of contingency is unusually high. I'd much rather see it be at, a normal percentage amount, $1.5 million or something, and if there's some unusual circumstance to go beyond that, that council weighs in on it. Because when I see contingencies like this, I happen to know how well you manage things, but when I see contingencies like this, 100,000 here, 200,000 there, da-da-da-da-da-da, that concerns me, because I'm all excited that we came in at 11.6, and I don't want to be thinking 13.6. So that's the concern I have.
Vice Mayor Brzezinski.
Thank you. Same issue, but a little different angle. When we looked at the new numbers, we celebrated the fact that those alternates that we had available to us could now be actually built. The assumption is that's being built within the lower figure, correct? That the $2 million has nothing to do with that.
That is correct.
Okay, so the $2 million sits as a dollar amount in those cases where we have change orders and so forth that might impact the project. From the perspective of our control mechanism, we are the ones who are in charge of this project. If we were to tonight reduce that $2 million to, let's say, $1.4 million, how would that affect our decision-making opportunity tonight? Would we have to go back and change our contract with the winning bidder?
No, you would not, because the award is for $11.6 million, and the second part of the recommendation is simply an authorization. So if you were to make an alternate recommendation for the contingency amount, everything would move forward. The contract would remain unchanged. What that would mean simply in the case of whether it was 1.4 is if we were to get to that place where we have awarded change orders up to that amount, we would come back to council a little bit sooner in that case. That's all it really means.
So we have two recommendations. One is to adopt the resolution, the other is to authorize the amount not to exceed. We could approve the first, no issues with the contract, and we could alter the second.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mrs. Spector?
Thank you. Realizing that this is a public hearing, right, and we have to hear from folks, at this point I would weigh in agreement with regard to the contingency with the other folks who have spoken.
Let's go ahead and open this for public comment. I have two cards, so we'll begin with Quinlan Tom. And if anyone else wants to speak on this, please fill out a card at this time.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and fellow members of the council. Thank you for the opportunity to address you. My name is Quinlan Tom. I'm an attorney representing Zovich Construction, the second bidder on the project. I'm here to urge you that, although I understand the excitement for such a large project here and the fact that you have a low bid from Bogart Construction that is below significantly from your engineer's estimate, that you reject that bid as non-responsive. And the reason why is that the bid itself failed to contain the proper non-collusion affidavit that's required under the Public Contract Code. The Public Contract Code was enacted to protect against corruption, fraud, and collusion. That's one of the specific items that was included by the legislature for all public works bidding in this state. And that's not something to be taken lightly. And the way I read the resolution that's been drafted and the staff reports, it appears that the town is willing to waive that and simply ignore that in light of the low bid and the fact that there does not appear to be any apparent corruption, fraud, or collusion. And that's not what I'm telling you that there is. The test is that you don't have to prove that. That's already there. The question is, does the bid on its face meet the requirements that the specifications require? And it doesn't. The resolution itself points out that there was a defect. There was one. Now, the resolution says, well, perhaps that's easily cured. Well, that's not the test. The test is, are all bidders at the time of bid in the same place? And did they provide you what was required under the specifications? The specifications required a non-collusion affidavit that says clearly it must be duly sworn by somebody. This one was not. Absolutely was not sworn. And now, one of the few requirements in the Public Contract Code is that this non-collusion affidavit be placed in there. And this is something that was not done by Bogart Construction. It was done by all the other bidders. Zovich Construction did it. Everyone else knew that you had to provide one to protect and put yourself up to the penalty of perjury. We swear that we have not colluded. That's something that Bogart Construction did not do. And that itself renders the bid non-responsive. Now, you'll hear the term inconsequential. I propose to you that anything that's required by the Public Contract Code, one of these very few handful requirements, is not inconsequential by itself. So I urge you, members, to follow the Public Contract Code, reject Bogart's bid as non-responsive, and uphold the law. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Zovich?
Good evening. I am the owner of Zovich Construction. Basically, I agree with what my lawyer stated out. I'm here not to give anybody a hard time. I'm here to let you know that I'm also a good contractor, good person. And I'm here to perform. I've got a lot of dedication, a lot of pride, and I feel, unfortunately, I got to point it out that I've been discriminated because it's so clear when it says there that we all got to do what we got to do. And then somebody comes out and says, oh, don't worry about it. I know you. You know, I like you better. We can't like anybody better or less. So I'm depending on your fairness. Use your judgment. On your fairness, I depend. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else who wants to speak on this matter? Seeing none, we'll close. I'm sorry. Oh, Mr. Bogart.
Good evening. I'm Jared Bogart, Vice President of Bogart Construction. And I'd just like to say that on behalf of Bogart Construction, we're very excited to be a part of this project. It's obvious that a lot of time and effort has gone into the design of this project, and we feel that we would be a valuable asset to the town of Los Gatos in order to bring this project in successfully. In order to address the issue at hand, the bid provided by Bogart Construction was in fact responsive. The information, the documentation that was included in that was filled out as required by the plans and specifications. The bid documents included a non-collusion affidavit, which required a signature, and we provided that. We feel that the information presented by Mr. Tom on behalf of Mr. Zovich is actually inconsequential and can simply be waived. Again, Bogart Construction is very excited to be a part of this project, and we look forward to beginning on schedule with the town. So thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? And this time I'll look the full span of the room. Seeing none, we'll close the public comment. Mr. Martello, did you have any comments you want to make at this time?
Yes, just to help the council evaluate what you've heard tonight, and also to make sure the record's clear, and perhaps starting with Mr. Zovich's comments first, I think the easiest thing for staff, and you could ask Mr. Capurso or Mr. Rahani, they'd say the same thing, and that was if the roles were reversed, and if it was Zovich that had the bid $12,000 or $13,000 lower and had maybe missed this step, we would be here tonight recommending Zovich. So it's certainly not picking one over the other. We're picking the lowest responsible bidder, who we think is the lowest responsible bidder. And that is the hallmark of the public bidding statutes. It's basically, in fact, there's a great quote from a court case that said it's not for the betterment of bidders, it's for the betterment of the public and what's best in the public interest. So there are no inconsequential defects. They all have to be evaluated. And I need to make it very clear for the record, we're not asking anyone to waive this. We're not asking the council to waive it. We're not seeing it as inconsequential. But the courts in reviewing this have, again, with the public bidding statutes, to get the best value for the public, maybe not a perfect bid, because in our experience, our collective experience, rarely do we see a perfect bid. Oddly enough, the Bogard bid was one of the more perfect bids we've seen, because we looked it over before we got the protest letter. With regard to that, Mr. Tom does make the point in his letter that they failed to follow the instructions. The one thing clear about this code section is there are no instructions. No one knows exactly what it means to sign it or swear it. I know that Mr. Bogard signed that believing he was signing under penalty of perjury. So that's important. But there are no instructions. There's nothing in the state law that says, and if it's not submitted with a notary or with a sworn statement with the bid, it must be thrown out. What the courts have said is they've given us some guidance, and if the council will indulge me, I'll just read that short the short guidance that I think all public lawyers follow when you're evaluating this. It says, in evaluating the type of defects that can be accepted, so it's talking about a defect that can be accepted. The courts have said that a bid may be responsive even if there is a discrepancy in the bid, as long as the discrepancy is inconsequential. That is, the discrepancy must not affect the amount of the bid, give a bidder an advantage over other bidders, be a potential vehicle for favoritism, influence potential bidders to refrain from bidding, or affect the ability to make bid comparisons. So that is really what the courts have looked at. And staff's evaluation of this, we cannot tell the council that we could recommend going with the lowest responsible bidder based on this alleged defect. And I will indicate for the record that both your resolution that's in your packet tonight and the contract do call for the contract. And again, the statute says every public works contract shall include, and that's part of the confusion. So that's what the statute says. The statute says the public works contract shall include. And in looking at some of the legislative history, as little as I could find, it seems consistent with that it be included in the contract. So the contract before you has a provision for a sworn affidavit, as does the resolution. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Mrs. Spector.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. To the town attorney, you answered my question, which was, is the affidavit going to be part of the contract? And the answer is yes. We have a contract as part of our packet. Is the affidavit contained in that contract, or is it referenced in that contract? I wasn't able to determine that.
It is referenced as a required attachment. And that is the basic form contract that we will use. It will change slightly till we get it executed.
Mr. Wasserman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and to Attorney Martello, if I may.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Martello, I've heard testimony of not being signed and being signed, and I believe I heard you say it was signed. Was it ultimately, is it signed?
The city's plans and specifications required that a form or an affidavit under Government Code or Public Contracts Code 7106 be executed and submitted with the bid. We did get from Bogart Construction a signed affidavit in the proper form.
Thank you.
As part of the bid package. We did get that as part of the bid package.
Council, other questions, comment, or motions? Vice Mayor Brzezinski.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think I'd like to make a motion. And I'm going to rely on the attorney for part of this, I think. We did receive a desk item prior to our coming to this meeting. And my motion is to adopt a resolution on attachment 1, declaring Bogart Construction to be the lowest responsible bidder on the project and award a construction contract in an amount not to exceed $11,642,976. And I would also, at this point, like to enter into the motion a point that Mr. Martello made, and this is in relationship to the objections raised by the second bidder, that defects can be accepted and may be responsive even if the discrepancy exists, so long as it's inconsequential. And the 5 issues of inconsequential, I would find it must not affect the amount of the bid, and I don't think there's anything in this that affects the amount of the bid. Give a bidder an advantage over other bidders. I don't see that happening here by any means. A potential vehicle for favoritism, and we certainly are not in the business of favoritism in this community. I don't see anything in the record that indicates that here. Influences potential bidders to refrain from bidding. I'm not aware of anyone. We had 10 bids. That doesn't seem like there was anything that prohibited people from bidding, and then affect the ability to make bid comparisons, and we all got a chance to read the comparisons. So those would be findings to support the adoption of the resolution, and confirm for the record that the objections raised are of no consequence.
Is there a second?
Let's have all of a second. I will second it if the maker of the motion, and this may be a formality, but for the record, if the maker of the motion states that the contract will include as part of it a sworn affidavit as required by state law.
That's acceptable to the maker?
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Mr. Rice.
There'd been quite a bit of talk about lowering the amount for future change orders. If
it's not in the motion.
It is not. I just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Just doing Part A right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Any other comments or questions regarding the motion and the second? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. We do have item B, which is the authorization to staff to execute change orders. The recommended amount is not to exceed $2 million. Mr. Brzezinski.
Question to staff. Assuming that $2 million is the high side, is there a range that is preferable down from $2 million that is more in keeping with what we've used as kind of our standard in the past?
We've actually had discussions before recommending the $2 million, and one number I would suggest to the council for consideration would be roughly the 13% contingency, which takes you to $1.5 million. That's also comparable to what the 10% contingency would have been on the original engineer's estimate. So if we hadn't gotten the low bids and had done a 10% contingency, that would have been $1,450,000. So 1.5 would be roughly a 13% contingency.
Mr. Rice.
Then I'll move to authorize staff to execute future change orders to the construction contract as necessary in an amount not to exceed $1,500,000.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 17, the approval of guiding principles for the development of the Los Gatos Creekside Sports Park. And we have a presentation by Mr. Capurso.
Once again, thank you, Mayor, members of the council, and this is a very exciting item for us, as was the library. This is an item that has to do with a recreational and park facility, so I would like to take this opportunity before getting into this item to introduce to the council our new Parks and Recreation Superintendent, Christine Walter, who I believe is still here. And I think many of you have met Christy in her previous stint here when she was part of the Management Talent Exchange Program. And she has technically not yet started with us. Her first day will be next Monday, June 14th, and this will be one of her first projects. So we welcome her back. So now onto the project. So while the town has been looking for ways to increase recreational opportunities for several years, this specific project begins in 2008 with the Vasona land sale. As you will recall, 13 acres of town-owned property completely surrounded by Vasona Park was sold to the county for $6 million. In approving that sale, the council also directed staff to take several specific actions. The first of which, probably the most important of all, was to place the proceeds into a reserve restricted for community and youth sports facilities. Also, we were directed to make Oak Meadow Park available for soccer practice Monday through Thursdays during the youth soccer season, and to initiate and complete master plans for both Balzer Field and Blossom Hill Park to ensure the continued use of 2 baseball fields and 6 tennis courts. All of these items have been completed. Another item also called for by the council was for staff to identify and to procure land for community and sports facilities. The site at 930 University was identified, evaluated, and purchased during 2009, and it is now time for the town to begin a master planning process later this year. We have appropriated resources for this purpose, and they are allocated in the town's 2010-11 capital budget. This will be the first time a new park is, this will be the first new park for the town in many years, and as a result of that, there is likely to be significant community input covering a wide spectrum of recreational activities. In order to guide the discussion, the council appointed a subcommittee consisting of the mayor and vice mayor. This subcommittee met with staff to identify the issues related to the site specifically, as well as within the context of the town's entire park system. In summary, the issues identified were to address the unmet active recreational needs as defined by the town's parks, open space, and trails inventory, to recognize the environmental sensitivity of the site, specifically its proximity to the creek, and as such we would be sensitive to the types of lighting, the traffic impacts, and the storm runoff associated with the site. We will also recognize the maintenance impacts of the site, and by this we specifically mean that we would pay specific attention to the type of surfacing that we would install. We would take a very hard look at artificial turf as opposed to natural, but we would also watch the electrical and water usage of the site as well. We would also provide safe, convenient access to the site, not only from University Avenue, but given that the site is adjacent to the Los Gatos Creek and hence the trail, although it's on the opposite side of the creek, we would take a very hard look at making a trail connection there as well. Additionally, we would encourage partnerships as we develop the site, and this could be done in a number of ways. This could be done initially during the development process, as we would look to grants and cooperative projects with other public agencies. Most notably, in this case, we would look to county parks and perhaps the water district, who both own adjacent properties, but also with regard to the operations of the site. And one of the tenets spelled out with regard to the operation of the site is that it should be a self-sufficient site. It should pay for itself, essentially. And we would evaluate third-party service provider options in looking at the operations. Now, the next slide is not meant to test your eyesight, although I'm sure that's what it will do for many of us, but this is to put up a summary version of the 10 guiding principles that came out of the council subcommittee, so that when we turn it back over to council and you discuss these guiding principles, they'll be up on the screen for all of our viewers to see. So that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Capurso. Do we have any questions of staff before we open this for public comment? Seeing none, I have one card so far and one on its way. So, Ed San Juan.
Good evening. I'm Ed San Juan, representing the Los Gatos United Soccer League, and thank you, Todd. We consider this a guiding light at the end of the tunnel. And for folks that don't know about Soccer League, we've been fighting long and hard. We serve about 1,800 kids in the Los Gatos area alone, from here to Summit Road, and we don't have very many fields in Los Gatos, and we suffer for it yearly. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Vice Mayor. Everybody in town knows about this already, so this is going to go a great deal. And there's a few things that it concerns me, but believe me, I'm a beggar, and so I will not be choosy. I would always love more fields, and so when it says one or two, it always worries me. But one big field would take care of a lot of kids. We could always turn it into two little ones, turn it sideways, things like that. Lights would be wonderful because we could go longer and we could serve more of the community. But if we can't get lights, we'll take the field. Absolutely. And it says music and entertainment uses will not be allowed at this facility. I consider soccer very entertaining. And a lot of folks do in town too. But fabulous. Thank you so much. Looking forward to opening day. And my kids might not be able to enjoy it, but many, many kids coming seasons after seasons, well past myself and others, that the board is really excited. Thank you, Mayor, ex-mayor. Thank you, Steve, and Barbara for pushing so hard, and Greg, thank you so much.
Thank you. Mark Jensen. And if we have any other cards, this would be the time to bring them up if you want to speak on this item.
Good evening, council members. Thank you again. As a citizen of Los Gatos, I think it's a great thing that you've done to get this park going. It's a needed resource. I would just urge you to consider that you expand your scope of looking at pedestrian and bicycle access, especially for the kids in our community, to the areas that are north of the area. Otherwise, there's going to be a 3-mile round trip to get, for a kid that's on the other side of Highway 17. Because right now, keeping in mind the recent fatality we've had on Lark Avenue, that road is just really inhospitable to anybody on a bike or on foot. And we've got an opportunity now with the MTC to get potentially state and federal matching money for pedestrian and bicycle improvements, and it's probably a great opportunity to go after some of that money to expand the scope of this project just a hair bit more and make it accessible to the folks on the north side of the town. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Eric Reichwein?
Hello. I wasn't expecting to speak, so I'll just make this short. Notice it says unmet recreational needs in the town, and soccer fields are definitely one. I know that we're running low on soccer fields, or the space, because a lot of kids do that, but also skate park is definitely one that's unmet. And every day I skate to school, I see all the elementary school kids razoring, rollerblading, skateboarding to school. And it's not just a few, and there's not like 10. There's 20, 30, 40. There's a bunch, and that's just Van Meter. And it's a growing sport. And the thing about like the skate park is it's not like only one team can use it like to practice like soccer field. It's everybody can use it. There's no time limit. It's not like, oh, you only get an hour to practice on it. And so the kids could like go to their hour practice or whatever, and then afterwards go to the skate park, or before go to the skate park. Like it would definitely keep kids active and keep them out of trouble. And if you put in the sports complex, you won't have to worry about the supervisors, because I assume there's going to be supervisors there. Am I correct? There will be? Okay, so yeah, like that solves the extra $50,000 a year for the skate park, and yeah, definitely consider that. And I also appreciate the the biking concerns, because it's definitely dangerous. I've noticed that on my skateboard too, so that's definitely another thing to look into. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on this item? Seeing none, we'll close the public comment, and I'll look to council for a motion or comments. Mrs. Spector.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is a question, it's not a motion, this is a question either for staff or the council subcommittee on these guiding principles. Two questions. One of them, what consideration, if any, for the access on University, bicycle access on University, coming south to north? That's always been a concern of mine. And also, when we talk about partnerships to raise funds, I know we still have some funds remaining in our recreation account, but I'm thinking that we are specifically talking about access on top of the dam or across the creek or something like that to have it be accessible, directly accessible from the park. So is that what we were talking about?
Let me give a try at an answer as a member of the subcommittee, and then my cohort over here can speak, and staff. These are guiding principles, so it's a template to guide the discussion as we start involving the community and the public in thinking about the future. And it's not a specific action plan, so I don't think that we have any specific recommendations or bullet points to go with either of those items. We're just saying that the access for pedestrians, vehicles, and bicycles needs to be looked at from all points of entry, and that we are going to want to explore all kinds of partnerships yet to be defined. Mr. Przezinski?
Yes, and number 6 tries to address that. In the committee, we've talked in great length about alternative access, particularly pedestrian and bicycle, and then safe passage onto University, in the signalization project at that point. So that would, as the mayor said, this is not the actual plan. This is the principles of the plan. So it's our intention to move in that direction.
Staff, did you have anything to add, or no? Okay. Other, Mr. Rice?
Well, I'm going to go ahead and move to adopt the guiding principles for the development of the Los Gatos Creekside Sports Park. Try as I may to have found something I wanted to change. I couldn't find any, so I commend the subcommittee for putting this together.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Second. Is there any further discussion? Mr. Wasserman?
Thank you. I wanted to take this time to thank the mayor and the vice mayor for forming the subcommittee. I also wanted to thank Vice Mayor Przezinski. We're started this about 3 years ago as we go back, and working with the county and all the rest, and the efforts, and made it happen and putting the money aside. I want to thank council for that leadership as well, setting the money aside so that this kind of project can become a reality. And I think that was the leadership of this council that made that happen. And Ed, I hope your kids do get to play on this soccer field, and they're still around. I think it's going to happen sooner than later. And I appreciate the guiding principles to give us the next step towards making this a reality. It's an exciting moment in Los Gatos history, as Mr. Capurso said, as far as first new park in recent memory.
You actually may hear in a few minutes the last part. Any further discussion? Seeing none, let's go ahead and take a vote on this motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And it passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Capurso. Next, we move to the last item of the evening, item number 18, which is the State of the Town report to the community. Mr. Larson, do you have a staff report to get us started?
The mayor is going to deliver the state of the town. We have provided in the council packet the strategic priority matrix that the council previously reviewed and adopted, and we will be having a few slides accompanying the mayor's remarks.
And thank you to Mr. Larson for putting together the slideshow here that will entertain you with some great visuals as you listen to my words here. So I think what you've already heard this evening is that there could not be a more perfect time than tonight's council meeting for a State of the Town report to the community. In the world of government, the new year starts on July 1st. So just like the days before January 1st, when many people reflect on what they've done in the past year and make resolutions for the new year, June is the time when we as a town look at what we've accomplished in the past 12 months and set goals for what we want to accomplish in the coming year. This year we are helped in this effort by the work done at the Town Council annual retreat this spring, when we developed a new strategic plan for the next 2 years. This plan helps everyone involved in town government, council members, commissioners, staff, volunteers, and the public have a clear understanding of what our priorities are. When you have limited resources, as the town does, it becomes even more important than ever to stay focused. So let me briefly review where we are at the start of our new year. But if you want the Twitter version of the state of the town, it's this: Los Gatos is great and about to get even better. The strategic planning process we used at the council retreat started with reaffirming the core values of this community. There are 6. Community character, which we defined as preserving and enhancing the appearance, the character, and environmental quality of the community. Good governance, which means ensuring responsive, accountable, and collaborative government. Fiscal stability, maintaining ongoing fiscal stability to provide cost-effective core services that meet the needs of the community. Quality public infrastructure, maintaining the condition and availability of public facilities, transportation systems, and other public infrastructure. Civic engagement, fostering opportunities for citizen involvement and cultural, recreational, and individual enrichment. And public safety, ensuring public safety through proactive community policing, effective emergency response, and community-wide emergency preparedness. These values are reflected in the core services the town provides to our residents: 24/7 police protection every day of the year, a library that's open 7 days a week, 345 acres of parks, trails, and open space, nearly 250 miles of streets and sidewalks, code compliance, special events, and all of the work done by town employees to protect the future of Los Gatos through appropriate building permits and planning decisions, environmental sustainability, and economic vitality. Over 80% of our resources are devoted to the day-to-day delivery of these services. They may not have a lot of pizzazz, but these are the services that our residents use most frequently and count on us to deliver. That doesn't mean, however, that we don't have anything new and exciting on our plate. Actually, quite the opposite is true. We are at a pivotal point that will impact our town for generations to come. Just look at what was on our agenda this evening. We approved a $34 million balanced budget for fiscal year 2010-2011, even though our revenues are down about $2 million from what was needed to cover our projected expenses. This gap was covered by incredible hard work by staff to reorganize departments and work assignments so that 9 empty staff positions could be eliminated without seriously impacting the delivery of service. They also came up with other ways to cut back on expenses so that we could keep our reserves as a safety net in case the economy gets even worse or there is another disaster like the Loma Prieta earthquake. Our town has been fiscally conservative for many years, putting money away in savings, being cautious about expenditures, and anticipating changes to our sources of revenue. We know the budget crisis is not over. The recession is not going away quickly. The 5-year budget forecast is disheartening, and we never know when the state is going to raid our bank account. But we have confidence that together, council, staff, and community, we can find workable solutions to the ongoing budget challenges that we know are coming. Even though a balanced budget and healthy reserves are job number 1, we have identified 27 strategic goals for the next 2 years beyond the core services the town provides for our residents. You'll be glad to know that I'm not going to go through each one of those this evening, and I do encourage you, though, to pick up a copy of our strategic plan matrix at Town Hall, or you can download it from the town website and take a few moments to review it. I would like to talk a little bit, though, about a few of our priorities. Let's start with the construction of the new library. Tonight, you heard, we just approved the construction contract with a firm that has experience in building libraries and whose bid came in almost $3 million under budget. This allows us to include a few special features that we weren't sure we could afford. These enhancements will also boost the green building status of a library from silver to gold LEED status, certified, rating it as one of the nation's most environmentally friendly. When we do the official groundbreaking of the library on Monday, June 21st at 10 a.m., and you're all invited to be there, and I'm expecting all of you to come, it will be the first new public facility built from the ground up since the neighborhood center was built 35 years ago. The current library opened when our population was 1/3 of what it is today. It's served us well, and it's still the most popular place in town, with 600 to 800 visitors a day, even though it is too small and technologically behind the times. It has taken many years to get a new library, but the wait is going to be worth it. That new library is going to be extraordinary, warm, inviting, filled with natural light, beautiful views, comfortable places to read, learn, think, create, and be inspired. I cannot wait until opening day to see families walk for the first time into the fun, colorful, and large children's area, and teens to discover their special place up on the second floor, and everyone to explore expanded computer access, the local history room, the courtyard, the reading chairs in front of a fireplace, and spacious rows of books, DVDs, periodicals, and other materials. It's going to serve the community like never before, and I'm proud to have been part of the team that is making this long-held dream a reality. Completing construction of that new library, developing a plan on the best community reuse of the old library space, and improving Pageant Grounds Park adjacent to the new library are three of the strategic priorities for the coming year. Another significant action we took this evening was adoption of guiding principles, just a few minutes ago, for the development of our newest park, the 3 acres the town recently purchased at 930 University Avenue, just north of the Sona Dam. What exactly will be in Los Gatos Creekside Sports Park will be determined through community meetings and the public process over the next few months. But we know that whatever goes in there will help to fill the gaps in recreation facilities available in Los Gatos. The last time Los Gatos had the opportunity to add an active use park was in 1978 when Bell Gatos Park opened. Like the library, the new sports park will serve many generations of Los Gatos residents and add to the outstanding quality of life we already enjoy in our town. Preparing for the future is a common theme of several of our priorities for the coming year. In the next few months, we will complete the update of our general plan, the document that describes the vision for Los Gatos in 2020 and serves as a blueprint for decision-making for the next 10 years. One of the long-held principles of the Los Gatos General Plan is that our community remain multifaceted and balanced, meaning that we have a wide variety of housing and businesses to meet the needs of our residents. The General Plan includes a companion piece called the housing element that is mandated by state law. This document identifies the opportunities in a community where new housing could be added and what type, with an emphasis on expanding affordable housing options. As you know, Los Gatos is a built-out community with little undeveloped land, and we all know how expensive our land is. So finding ways to add affordable housing can be a challenge. Still, we currently have almost 1,000 homes, condominiums, or apartments in Los Gatos that have been identified as affordable to families and individuals who qualify. That would be teachers and bank tellers, waiters, store clerks, the receptionist in your accountant's office, the mechanic who changes your oil, and your favorite barista who brews your latte, people who do not make a lot of money but who are an important part of the fabric of this community. Developing and implementing a strategy to add more affordable housing throughout the community is on the list of priority goals for the next 2 years. Fiscal stability is crucial to the future of any community, and part of what makes the financial situation stable for a municipality is having a solid and diversified base of businesses that generate revenue for the town and provides goods, services, and jobs for residents. That's why economic vitality is also on the list of priorities for the coming year. In many ways, Los Gatos is in an enviable position compared to other cities in our region. I can't tell you how many times I have run into people from different parts of the Bay Area who rave about downtown Los Gatos, and even a movie star over the weekend from Hollywood. And some of these folks are elected officials from other cities, too. We have what they wish for: a beautiful natural hillside setting, carefully preserved historic buildings, appealing independent stores and restaurants mixed in with a few national retail brands, and shoppers and diners strolling the sidewalk, enjoying it all. In the past few months, I've cut the red ribbon at the opening of 11 new businesses in town, and I've had meetings with a dozen or so other companies who want to grow their businesses here. And here's what I've learned. Despite the economy, businesses are bullish on Los Gatos because of its unique attribute. That's why every time a space opens in our downtown, the landlord starts to get calls immediately from potential new tenants. It's why some really interesting cutting-edge technology companies are selecting Los Gatos for their startup. And it's why long-established companies that are ready to expand look for ways to stay in town rather than to move to another city. We have a lot to offer businesses, and they have a lot to offer us. I want to add to the efforts underway by the Chamber of Commerce and our Economic Vitality Program to cultivate this relationship by hosting a mayor's breakfast with emerging companies so that we can learn more about how we can work together to be mutually beneficial and mutually successful. I've asked staff to begin to plan 2 other community gatherings this fall in support of our strategic priorities. One will bring together clergy and representatives of the many faith congregations in Los Gatos to talk about how we can cooperate to improve emergency preparedness in our community. Helping our residents become better prepared for the next earthquake or wildfire is a high priority for the coming year, and coordinating these efforts with our local faith congregations is an untapped resource. It's another way to connect with thousands of our residents. I recently had the opportunity to be part of a peer review of a new handbook being published by the California League of Cities on how to work more effectively with congregations. It contains many best practices that we can emulate, and the best way to begin is by starting the conversation. The other special gathering I hope to chair soon is a follow-up to the annual Council Commission retreat held this spring. Citizen involvement is a core value of Los Gatos, and we are fortunate to have so many people willing to step forward and volunteer. Among the most devoted of these volunteers are the individuals on our commissions and boards who spend hours and hours helping council identify and work through policy issues. They are our extra eyes and ears out in the community, and we count on them to do our jobs. At this year's annual retreat, I asked the chairs of all the commissions to come to the table with the council at the same time. The synergy that started to take place among them was exciting and promising. Never before had they had an opportunity to meet one another and learn more about what the other commissions and boards were doing. And they wanted more time to talk and share ideas and resources. The commission confluence this fall will be that opportunity, and I hope it becomes an annual tradition. In 2009, I was appointed to the National League of Cities Small Cities Council. There are about 100 of us on this council, but we represent issues and concerns of 19,000 communities throughout the U.S. with populations of less than 50,000. Through this post, I have been reminded time and time again that Los Gatos is a standout. We are an incredibly fortunate and special community, and our achievements must be attributed almost entirely to the people who live here, who care about our town, and who get involved. As council members, we get to meet residents who are passionate about all types of activities and issues. Whether it's attending opening day at Little League, an art reception, a service club meeting, a chamber event, or the birthday party of a resident who's turning 100, we find that all of our residents have one thing in common. They love Los Gatos, they treasure being able to live here, and they want the best for our future. One of my most prized possessions is a 1930s brochure about Las Gatos, describing it to people who might want to move here. It describes Las Gatos as, quote, a city of homes, culture, beauty, charming surroundings, and desirable environment. And it promises those who choose Las Gatos a, quote, luxury of living here that is not measured by your means. The state of the town of Las Gatos has not changed much since those words were written. And as the shorthand Twitter version of the state of the town said, Las Gatos is great and about to get even better. I thank you for the privilege of serving as your mayor this year, and thank you for sharing the values and supporting the strategic priorities that make Las Gatos the incredible community that it is. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, and that was one of the most pleasurable reports to the community I've had the pleasure of delivering. So we are out of agenda items, and this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.